The famous psychologist Carl Jung said, "For the alchemist, the one primarily in need of redemption is not man, but the deity who is lost and sleeping in matter." We would like to explore the deeper meaning of this. What does Jung mean by the words, the deity who is lost and sleeping in matter? Who is it that is in need of redemption? And why does he refer to the alchemist? Jung is perhaps more renowned for his exploration and explanation of the human psyche, and in particular the ego. We are totally self-identified with our limited physical form, our conditioned thoughts, opinions, and emotions, and are totally subservient to the unconscious patterns of the egocentric mind. Therefore, the ego is a mind-based sense of identity, with which or in which, symbolically speaking, we have imprisoned our true self with the thick walls of our egocentricity. So it is quite understandable that all around the world today, people from all walks of life are crying out for a fundamental revolutionary change, not just for the right to live in a peaceful and fair society, but to be truly free. This longing for redemption and liberation stems from the feeling that these thick walls of the ego stand between our current state of life and true freedom. That you are listening today shows perhaps that this awakening and the questioning of the status quo is also happening in yourself. Yet, when Jung says the one primarily in need of redemption is not man, it is not to deny that the human being needs redemption. Undoubtedly, every human being longs to be free. What Jung sees as our primary need, however, is the redemption of the deity within us. Giordano Bruno, who was burned at the stake for his heretical views, said, "I can reach the divine in my own chambers." Now, a little over 400 years later, ignorance of this very essential knowledge still allows us to imprison ourselves and those around us. Religion and society still condition us to think that we need an intermediary to connect us with the divine, or as Jung calls it, the deity who is lost and sleeping in matter. But the knowledge at the heart of all universal wisdom is that we all carry in us this divine principle. Every spiritual tradition gives it their own name. For the classical Rosicrucians, it is the rose of the heart. In the East, it is the lotus flower. The alchemists called it the secret candle of the divine light. The golden rosicrucian calls it the spirit spark atom. This is the nucleus, seed, or blueprint for the true spiritual human being, in the Hermetic sense of the only good, which is the source of true wisdom, freedom, beauty, and love.
According to the legend of the Rosicrucian alchemists, around the time Giordano Bruno died for his beliefs, the tomb of Christian Rosicross was discovered. On it was engraved the axiom, Ex Deo Nascimur, from God we are born. In Jesu morimur, in Jesus we die. Per Spiritum Sanctum revivissimus, through the Holy Spirit we are reborn. This Rosicrucian axiom indicates a threefold process. Bruno spoke of reaching the divine directly within oneself. Jung spoke of the one in need of redemption. The alchemist of the Middle Ages spoke of a fourfold process of nigrido, albedo, citrinitas, and rubedo. Even in nature we see an allegory in the transformation of the caterpillar from the pupa stage to the butterfly. All of these speak of a process of total self-revolution, self-transformation. To become a butterfly, the caterpillar actually digests itself. It turns mostly into a type of nutrient soup, and then reconfigures itself into a new being. The beginning of this process is the inner recognition of the primary one, to which Jung refers, and to which the classical Rosicrucians refer in Ex Deo Nascimur. And from the basis of this inner divine principle, we set out on our path of redemption. So, realizing that our ego is not the one is the first step towards liberation. It is the beginning of the great alchemical process of transforming the lead of the transient ego into the spiritual gold of a totally new, eternal being. Throughout our life, in the formation of our ego, we tend to suppress any personality traits that we find undesirable. This tendency is an aspect of what is called the shadow in the Jungian psychological model. Also, we might be tempted to try to change or control what we perceive as negative in us. Maybe fight against it, resist it, or even try to destroy it. But here we need to remember that the ego cannot diminish or dissolve the ego. For that would be like the tall tale of Baron Munchausen, who pulled himself out of the mud by pulling at his own hair. The medieval alchemist's endeavors in the transformation of metals is an allegory for the process of inner alchemy, in which there is always first a breaking up or dissolution of the base, the ignoble, through a higher agent. The first step of alchemy is called the nigrido, or blackness, often symbolized by a raven, and has to do with decomposition. This is the process of in Yesu Murimur. In Jesus we die. For the dissolution, a dissolving agent is needed that is of a higher, totally other nature. The light of consciousness, the inner divine principle, our inner Christ, which has its being in the eternal present. We need to gain self-knowledge of our complete identification to emotions and thoughts, including of our shadow side, our conditioned state of being from the unconscious. We do this by shining the light of our inner alchemical fire on the unreality of our egocentric state of being and become aware. With the light of our new awareness, we can observe our thoughts and emotions objectively, without judging or suppressing them. And, symbolically speaking, we put ourselves in the retort in self-surrender to our inner spiritual source, our inner alchemical fire, where true transformation can happen. Now, if we meet a person who displays characteristics we have tried to suppress in ourselves, we are irritated by them. We can even project a suppressed trait on other people, judge them severely for it, and effectively imprison them within our projections. If we instead look inside ourselves and see this trait as if in a mirror, we will see what we are suppressing. And this self-knowledge frees us and the people concerned. In true inner alchemy, there is no external authority, not even one within the thoughts of your own personality being. You know from within, from the voice of the silence, what needs to be done and what has to be lived. If we would just become open to it, the spirit soul will guide us to perceive our experiences in a way that helps us gain true insight and inner self-knowledge.
Of course, we cannot dwell on this dark phase of the nigredo. We notice it, and then we let it go. And at the same time, we direct ourselves to the light within us. In the alchemical laboratory, the alchemist would either burn or pound a substance until it was purified and became perfectly white, albedo. We surrender daily to the divine inner fire until the blackness is purified to pure white, and our consciousness becomes more and more integrated. This is the second step in alchemy, which is called albedo, and is often symbolized by a white swan. It is a new, transformed consciousness. And so, speaking symbolically, we die in Jesus, in Jesu morimur. Having gone through the nigredo and albedo stages, we have gained self-knowledge and detached from our artificially created ego. The walls around our innermost essential self, our spirit spark, crumble. The spirit spark, which is of the same essence as the universal spirit, has fully united with the heart. In self-surrender to our inner Christ,
Our divine being within acts as a receiver for the cosmic divine energies, starting from our source, the light in the heart. Here we also speak of the Kundalini of the heart. Our three consciousness centers are infused with spirit. We can then imagine a stream of light from our renewed heart, transforming our thinking and willing. This would refer to the phase of citrinitas in alchemy, which stands for yellowness, for the dawning of the solar light. Citrinitas is usually symbolized by the sun and also by the eagle. In this phase, the spirit spark, the inner alchemical fire, transforms the three aspects of the human consciousness, our thinking, feeling, and willing, into a spiritual consciousness. And if we remain in this self-surrender and allow the Spirit to work within us, the light will circulate throughout our entire microcosmic system. In outer alchemy, this is the rubedo phase, where the elements in the retort are gradually purified until they precipitate. And finally, the transmuted gold can be accumulated and stored. In inner alchemy, this stage relates to the transfiguration of the entire human being into spiritual gold, into a new spiritual human being. Starting with our mental body, then the astral body and the etheric body, and down to the physical body, they are infused with spirit, and we have become new spiritual human beings. This is why the symbol for rubedo is the phoenix arising from the ashes. The completion of this magnum opus, the great work, is reflected in the third line of the classical Rosicrucian axiom, per spiritum sanctum revivissimus. We are reborn through the Holy Spirit. For the Rosicrucian, the motivation to embark on this opus magnum is not the intention to transcend this earth and to leave it, but rather a love for humanity and the world. As Paul says in his letter to the Romans, "For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God." And right from the beginning of our inner journey, we can ask ourselves, who is it that our personality is serving? Our ego or the other one, the true self within? And here we need to understand a basic alchemical concept. Inner alchemy is not a linear process. With our linear thinking, we cannot fathom this entire process from its beginning in the nigredo phase to the final rubedo phase, as if we were following steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're done. No, in real life, this process happens as a flowing spiral, or like peeling an onion, where we get to deeper and deeper levels, always working with the fundamental principle of alchemy, solve et coagula, dissolve and coagulate. The intention is not to further develop whomever we are now, increasingly refining ourselves with the hope of becoming more spiritual. No, nothing new can be built if we do not first clear the space for it, letting the old dissolve by connecting to the one divine principle. So our daily life becomes our alchemical laboratory. We close this contemplation with a passage from The Living Word by Catarosa de Petrie, one of the founders of the Golden Rosy Cross. In the heart sanctuary, in and around the place where the spirit spark atom rests, lies the source of the purifying and soul-realizing Kundalini. In the philosophy of the Golden Rosy Cross, we call this Kundalini the power of salvation, the power of eternity, the power that enables one to rise up through and over the astral plane. In that rose power, we can accomplish all things.